Hi guys, how you doing? So, this video is going to be about promiscuous women in evolutionary terms. This is just my understanding from what I have read, and the conclusions I arrive at are mostly my own. Peering through the evolutionary class, a man would not prefer an unfaithful mate because his primary objective is to pass on his genes. If he partnered a promiscuous female, she would bed other men, and the probability of the child being his decreases drastically. It is a loss for him because he might spend a lot of his resources bringing up a child that was not his. A wise strategy to adopt during the time of paternal uncertainty was to choose the faithful partner. The other side of the coin is that men would lose nothing by sowing their wild oats and having sex with another man's partner, as long as no one found out and labeled her a slut. It was in fact a good strategy. He would ensure that his genes pass on and the resource expenditure would be a bare minimum, a few million sperms. Being a stud was a good strategy for our hunter-gatherer ancestors. A woman would also be advantaged as labeling another a slut, as it would decrease the competition for a man, as he would be more invested in partnering up with a loyal woman and share his resources with her. A man was not advantaged calling out another man's wife a slut, but women were advantaged if they did. The cost of a woman having a child without a father in the hunter-gatherer society would almost surely spell doom for the child and the woman. Essentially, a woman had an increased chance to pass on her genes if she was with a man who shared his resources with her. So women chose to either be promiscuous in secret or loyal. Now, we move into the civilized world. I believe that slut-shaming was and still is a weapon used by women more than men. Women are the gatekeepers to sex, and in return, she would get resources. A woman giving the milk away for free is the worst possible thing that could happen. A man asking for a hand in marriage, another way of asking for sex and to pass on his genes, would have to prove himself to be a protector and provider. A woman giving the milk away makes the men ask themselves, why do I have to spend resources on her if I could get sex for free from another, and there is a possibility I might pass on my genes without having the added responsibility? A woman labels the one that gives it for free a slut, and she is ostracized and cast out. They're back to being the gatekeepers of sex again. The times have changed now, and men will lose big if they get married or have kids. A kid out of marriage has to be supported by the father, but he would not be able to see his child. A divorce in a marriage could also result in a similar outcome. I think it is time men stop looking at sex as a gift from women, because women need sex as much as men. They have been trained since birth and through the years of evolution to only give sex to a man with sufficient resources. There is nothing in the female biology that suggests that women are less sex-driven than men. It has been theorized that our sexual practices are similar to the bonobos. A bonobo female moans and groans during intercourse in a similar manner to human females, in order to let other males know that she's getting lucky. The primary reasons for the moans and groans, however, is to encourage males to line up and take turns having their way with her. There are two reasons she wants to have uninterrupted sex with several males. One, she is capable of having multiple orgasms. One male can usually only give the female one orgasm, but a greater number increases that. 2. Sperm competition. The more men that have sex with her, the wider the variety of sperms or genes. The female bonobo's body can now choose a good match for her. Women have equal if not greater sex drive than men. The wide variety of dildos and vibrators attest to that. In the 1800s, several women were diagnosed with hysteria, what we know now as sex deprivation, and physicians had to masturbate the women. A physician, George Taylor, in 1859 claimed that a quarter of all women suffered from hysteria. That's 1 in 4. That's a pretty high number. Moving on. I actually want to talk about the Indian culture and what happens here with regards to slut shaming. Again, what I say here is what I think happens in Indian society. I'm in no way saying it's a fact. It is what I have observed, and it is my thought process alone. A lot of the moral policing and public slut shaming in India is done by men. I always wondered why men were so sure that they were right when they do some atrocious acts, and where they got such an idea into their head. I started thinking, and this is what I ended up with. When I was a boy, I spent most of my time with my mother, and a lot of what I learned about the Indian culture, I learned from her. I judged people and respected people based on her criteria. If she said that an unmarried man is a stain on society, I would judge an unmarried man to be so. My dad was in another country, unfortunately, working his heart out to provide for us, and I have the utmost respect for what he's done. My morals and values changed, probably because I spent some time in a boarding school and also about 5 years in Australia. I realized that maybe what I talked about before would be the case for most men in India. In the previous generation, most women were stay-at-home mothers and men went out to work. So women were teaching men the values they should follow and practice. What morals men learned were mostly from their mothers and from their peers. Of course, what one learns from the peers cloud a lot of things, but the essence of what the mother said remains. Could it be that women were in the shadows giving orders and men enacting them? Even during the Kiss of Love movement, women were more opposed to it, but we saw only men acting out and causing problems. And this is the conclusion I arrived at. Women dictate what should and should not be done in society, but what we see are the men enforcing it, and thus we criminalize men for their actions, but do not criticize the ones setting the standards and pulling the strings. As a result, men are blamed for their acts, and what this does is solidify what most people abroad hear in the news. India is a patriarchal country, and men rule with an iron fist. Alright, that's it for today, guys. Again, this is just what I think. You're welcome to criticize it. Leave your comment below, and as always, if you want to see more of my videos, hit the damn subscribe button. Cheers.